Welcome to the Power of Us podcast, where we explore the journeys of remarkable leaders who unite vision with action to create positive change. I'm your host, Azure Gray. Whether you're at the office or on your morning run, winding down from a busy day, glad that you can join us as we learn from the best and brightest about what it means to lead with integrity, innovate with intention, and empower with insight. Let's start the conversation because together, we are powerful. So thank you for joining us today. I would love to introduce you to our guest, Kiana Davis. Kiana is the CEO of MYB, Mind Your Business Accounting, and an IU alum, fellow Hoosier, active in her sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, and serves as the chapter president for the Central Region. Kiana has served as the board president of the African American Legacy Fund of Indianapolis and president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. She also serves on the Indiana Path for You Advisory Board on maternal fetal health and is involved with Jack and Jill of America. Quite a resume there. Thank you so much for coming, Kiana. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. You know, the mornings are good for me.
Okay.
So it's where my creativity is unleashed in the morning before everyone gets in the office and coffee is made and pitter patter happens.
Okay. So you are a morning person. I completely understand. I can't relate, but my son is a morning person. I've finally gotten him to sleep until about 6 o'clock. He used to like to get up at about 4:30 in the morning. And if you can only imagine.
Oh, okay. That's a little too early, but 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's a good time frame for me.
Okay. Got it. Well, I would like to ask you a few questions. I know I shared some of this with you, but some of it will just kind of flow into some things. So you started your business, MYB, 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. What were some of the challenges you had to overcome in the process of doing that?
For fear. I think when you are transitioning from corporate America, where there is a consistent paycheck, there is consistent benefits, there is resources, whether it's as simple as a pack of paper and pens, right? Mm-hmm. To the exchanging of ideas, or if something fails, there's an ecosystem. When you transition to owning your own business, you don't have any of that. And so for many people, they don't go into entrepreneurship because there's that fear, not only of the unknown, but the fear of, wow, I don't exist in the ecosystem. And for those that may not think through that, once you make that conversion to entrepreneurship, you will learn very quickly that you don't live in that ecosystem. So you are bringing pens from home and paper, printing paper from home, because in the beginning, you just have to make it work. But the creativity and the idea that you're building something based on your values is just a powerful moment. It's a powerful situation to exist in.
And so tell me a little bit about that. When you made the decision, what prompted you to do that? What was really the driving force?
So I made the decision to go to full entrepreneurship. So I've always had what we call kind of a gig. Okay. So I've done taxes on the side because I'm an accountant. I've been in finance for a couple decades. And so I've always done things on the side. I've helped people on the side. And so I did have very small clientele, friends, family who just needed help. And I didn't mind helping them. What made me transition over is really this glass ceiling I was hitting in all of the positions. And so my last job, I was CFO of a company, a regional company here. And I wanted to move into the CEO space. And it happened to me one time and I just said, hey, maybe it wasn't my time. When I moved to another organization and it happened again, I just had to say, well, maybe maybe I need to do something different here. And I found it amazing because at the time I was deputizing for the CEO. Usually a CEO and a CFO are kind of thick as thieves. Operations and finance go kind of hand to hand. And so there was a lot of things going through my mind. I'm just not, was it, my gender, my race, was I not good enough, etc. And so instead of being bogged down with the negativity of why, I looked at myself in the mirror. And I've always had an entrepreneur spirit, but fear was that thing that just didn't allow me to move. Because again, when you have a family, you have a life. And so the consistency of what working for someone else gives you. However, I made up my mind that day that if I didn't do something now, it would never happen. So I put myself actually on a 5-year plan. I went to my husband and I said, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about transitioning. What do you think? And man, he was so supportive. And I said, if you can give me 2 years to just not be able to contribute financially to the family, can you handle it? He was like, I got you. At the same time, having a network of people in the city helped, because as soon as I told some of my friends and my colleagues and my allies what I was going to do, many of them surrounded me with connections that were just absolutely unbelievable. And so it gave me a level of assurance that this was the right path. So my family was on board. My friends and my colleagues were on board because they saw my work. I've worked with them and they just saw, wow, Kiana, you are made for this. So in my first 2 years, a little nervous, but COVID happened. And so I did get freaked out. I got freaked out in COVID because I'm like, oh my God, I just left a company and
COVID. Didn't we all? Because I have to tell you, I did the same thing. Oh my goodness. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. And so I think I just stayed in there. I said, you know what, this too shall pass. And now 5 years later, here we are.
Yes. Well, congratulations to you. It's funny because some of that really resonates with me because I was in a position, I left a company I'd been with for almost 14 years in 2019. And then COVID hits and I'm thinking, was this the right thing to do? Right. But at the same time, I left for the very same reason. It was a great place to be, but I wanted something more. I wanted some mobility it was a pretty flat organization. There just wasn't really that opportunity there. Yeah. And to leave behind that level of stability. I mean, I was thinking, God, I haven't created a resume. I mean, what is this? So it can hit you a little hard, right? Especially then when you have a global pandemic that's sprinkled on top. It can be a bit much.
It can. But look at where you are. Look at,
here we are, right?
Here we are.
Yes, most definitely. So let me ask you, for those who are thinking about starting a business or other women who are hitting that glass ceiling, what advice would you give to them?
I would just say, do it. There's never going to be a right time in your mind, especially high performing women who do their due diligence. They plan. They want to see the whole business plan and, want to dot I's and cross T's. And being in my industry, that's just who I am. I ooze that. Just making sure everything balances as an accountant. So those traits and those values spill over to how I make decisions with data, et cetera. And I think most women are prudent. They're diligent. However, this is a space where you just have to do it. You will be amazed that once you put yourself out there, there is a whole cloud of folks who will be rooting for you. And I could tell you in my business, every piece of business I've had has come from word of mouth. Just because once you get one client, they refer you. And if you do a good job, with which most of us, we really do try to do a good job, people don't mind referring you. And so you just have to do it. It's never going to be the right time. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough time. You just have to do it. And here is where we think it's either sink or swim. I don't think those are our choices. I think you try something. And just like I went to my husband, I put myself on a 2-year plan. If this doesn't work, I know I can develop my resume and go back out there. But if it does work, oh my God, the potential. And if I don't try, will I always regret not making that move?
Wondering, coulda, shoulda, woulda, right?
Yeah.
That's the scariest thing. Really, if I think about it, is to reach the end of my life and wish it had been something different. Mm-hmm. And so thinking about how we put ourselves into it and give it a shot, and some things work and some things don't, which leads me to my next question. Failure. We've all had it. What was the moment like for you, and what did you learn from a mistake or a failure in the past?
Ooh. I mean, I think I fail every day.
I love the honesty.
I mean, this is wrong, right?
Like, I've already done it twice today.
I bleached the dark clothes before I got here. And
right.
I spilled coffee all over the place. I missed a meeting, honestly, whether you are working at your highest level in a company or in entrepreneurship, failure is evident. You're going to experience it. However, I don't get nervous with failure because I think it always teaches me something. Okay. It teaches me something about myself, or especially in entrepreneurship, it might teach me about how to pivot, how to scale, or it teaches me what client I want to serve or the profile, and those that I just don't have the capacity, the wherewithal, or the knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I think the realization of that comes through failure. Believe me, I have plenty, even starting my business, plenty of failures. Little things that I think back now that I know now that I didn't know then, and said, man, I really missed it. I wish I would have known, but I'm not going to harp on it, right? We take it down, we learn our lesson, and we move on. We try as much as we try to be successful and perfect, especially as women. We really have to understand that failure is a part of the growing process. If you want to create those quantum leaps in your life, failure is there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not failing, you're not growing, so they say.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one who, fails daily with the coffee spill and some of that good stuff. So for me, I couldn't find the kids' water bottles this morning. It's always something, right?
It's always something.
Now, you are obviously a business owner, CEO. You are a wife of a pastor.
I am.
And a mother. Mm-hmm. So let's get into the work-life balance. How does this, because you are a very busy woman. We'll be talking about some of the other things you've been busy with lately. I can't wait to get into, but how do you do it?
I don't believe in work-life balance. So it's just not a term I use. I think life is about integration. And so for me, I think I started to feel overwhelmed maybe 20 years ago because people are saying, hey, you have to have work-life balance. I'm like, well, I want to do everything. I want to be good in career and family and community and friendship, right? Just having girl time and developing those relationships. But I was stressing myself out because I'm like, how do people do this? And then I realized that what I was really doing is saying that what my career gets out of me or the way I show up is very different than the way I show up in community and the way I show up to family. And what I realized is I couldn't keep up those facades. I could not silo those Kiahnas because it was taxing, it was exhausting. And so I think, especially as an African American woman leader, there's this idea of imposter syndrome that goes on.
Yeah.
And then also, are you good enough, et cetera? So the way we show up in career really is that, am I good enough? Am I, and we work so hard to really convince ourselves that we're good enough, and everyone else is saying like, sis, you are killing the game. And so, but that's different in community, right? Empathy and compassion and a lot of energy is there. And then at home, I get to show up in my authentic self, right? I get to show up in my mama mode and my wife mode, and, I get to relax. So my language at home is very different than my language, or used to be in career. I said, no more. If the space cannot accept me for who I am authentically, it's not a space I need to be in.
Yeah, I absolutely can relate to that. And it's one of the things I have to admit that I've really enjoyed since joining the team here at Mojo Up is just, and I think part of it is the organization, and part of it is also the stage I've reached in my life.
Correct.
Where having to really kind of being broken down to the absolute, the white meat was showing, right? it was bad. And so once I got there, it said, okay, I have to figure this out. And there was no extra energy to spare. And so it really became one of those things where I finally was able to, I think, just let my hair down and be my authentic self.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had lunch with someone I used to work with, a former colleague at the other company I mentioned. It said, great organization, left on great terms. But he said, you know what? For the first time, I feel like I'm really seeing you.
Oh, I love
the real me. And so it was really nice. It was just kind of reinforced that I hadn't really thought about it that much at the time, but it's been pointed out to me by several other people. Did anybody say the same that knows you well?
I wouldn't say that was the feedback, because really what happened is what people saw in community and at home allowed my career to see that in me. And so what it did do for me is develop newer and deeper relationships on the career side, expanding my network. And so it honestly, once, and this happened to me about 9 years ago, when that happened, I felt freer. I felt freer in life. And I think that really was the setup, speaking about like just faith. For me, that was the setup. I didn't know it at the time that I was going through this metamorphosis in this transition. 8-10 years ago, I didn't know I would be in this space, but I believe that everything was being set up for this moment. And I had to go through maybe shedding some relationships and acquiring additional relationships for people to see me as me, unapologetically woman, unapologetically Black, and being okay with that in all the spaces I exist in.
Absolutely. That is definitely inspirational, and it shows. It absolutely shows. So if you're thinking about your leadership style, because we do work together too. So, but for those out there who don't know Kiana, how would you describe your leadership style, your presence?
I am a motivator. I am definitely not a micromanager. Maybe that was because I was born I'm a Gen Xer, and we just got the stuff done. Very little excuses.
Yes, we did.
We just got it done with very little resources, a knife and a fork, and we went at it. And I think that has influenced my leadership style. I'm not a micromanager. I believe that when I hired you or when you were brought to the team, you were brought to the team because one, you were an adult and a competent adult. And my expectation is that what I assumed out of hiring you, that's what I'm going to see. And I give a lot of trust to people, a lot of leeway, a lot of room, not only to succeed, but to fail. And even in failure, we sit down and we talk through what could have gone wrong and not use it as a point of a performance improvement plan, but really as one of growth. And so for me, if I had one word to describe my leadership style, I would say I'm the Captain America of my team. I'm the person who goes in hard for my team, and I have my team's back as long as they're doing their work. I am definitely hands 10 toes down, pushing people. I don't believe I'm the smartest person in the room, and I'm okay that I'm not, because if you're leading people, you hire the smartest people to get the job done. So I don't have a lot of ego when it comes to that. So I am the Captain America of the team. My job is the quarterback and everybody else just setting them up for success.
I like that. And I'd have to say, having spent time around you, that you definitely do have an air of confidence about you that does not cross over into ego. That's I've never gotten that impression from you. Although if you wanted one, you might be able to pull it off, because you've been up to some very, very interesting and high level things lately. Well, for 20 years or so, but lately you are the chapter president for Alpha Kappa Alpha, AKA, and that has been busy. Some things going on there this year. You want to share a little bit about what you've been up to in that particular position?
Absolutely. And so it's a regional director, because I oversee chapter presidents.
Okay.
And so it's an elected position within our organization. But thinking about Alpha Kappa Alpha, I was raised in the organization through undergraduate. I was initiated at Indiana University in Bloomington. So I am a proud Hoosier. And with the organization, just grew up in it, really instilling the values in me concerning ethics and empathy and the care of community and leadership. And so it's the first organization that really, we want to talk about the confidence that you see in me. Alpha Kappa Alpha helped develop that. I would say my Sunday school teacher did too, but Alpha Kappa Alpha really took what home did for me and really molded that. It just, and to be around hundreds of thousands of intelligent Black women. I mean, it sends chills up my spine that they're all rooting for you. And so I decided to run for this position to oversee pretty much what we consider the traditional Midwest: Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Kentucky, parts of Missouri. And I oversee all of the members and the chapters in that. And so it's been a pleasure, a busy pleasure, but it's been a pleasure to lead, to motivate all of these women, both at a collegiate and an alumni level. And so we've been busy. I've transitioned, not only doing that role, but one of the things in Alpha Kappa Alpha we did as a board of directors is approved a political action committee. And I serve as the treasurer for that political action committee, in which we're able to really put our money and our voice to the halls of power in Washington, D.C. in a way we can't do on the membership organization side. So I'm pretty excited about that. We were able to raise a lot of money in the last few days to support some candidates here in this general election.
Absolutely. Well, thank you as just a fellow citizen for doing that, because I know we are in a place where a lot of us are excited about the election, exhausted from the election, and looking forward to being on the other side of it, right? So
November can't come fast enough.
No, it cannot. The day, it's like dog years right now, trying to get through all of this. But oh well, we'll survive. So you've talked about the role that AKA has had for you, and you mentioned your Sunday school teacher. Do you have specific mentors that were important and key in your life?
Absolutely. One of my first mentors, my first job was Motorola in Schaumburg, Illinois. I left IU to move to the Chicago area, and his name was, I always call his name because I think it's important to call people's names, Steve Monaco. And he probably doesn't remember me. And honestly, I've been tracking to make sure he's still on this side of heaven because he was an older gentleman about to retire, 30 years ago. However, most people didn't care for him. He was a gruffy, guy but you're right. That confidence that AK instilled in me, I just, I wasn't scared. So I remember he was a senior vice president of finance he I think there was 1,000 finance professionals he kind of led in Motorola. And one day I was just like, I'm going to go into his office and just chat. And I went into his office and he kind of looked up with his glasses. He was like, well, and I was just like, hey, Steve. And I'm just talking, how's your kids? How's your wife? At 21, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But let me tell you what that did. It developed into a relationship where he absolutely not only mentored me, but he sponsored me. And so he would throw nuggets, and he's, Kiana, you want to go here, you want to maneuver here, and it wasn't a formal, handshake relationship. But I would go in his office at lunchtime once a week and just chit chat with him and just gain all the wisdom and knowledge, because it was my first corporate job. And he allowed me to maneuver where in that role I was able to he moved me to the international accounting role where my colleagues and what I oversaw was the accounting in 5 different countries. So I was able to interact with Motorola China and Motorola emerging markets and Motorola India. And so it was for a 21-year-old to have that responsibility, but he also sponsored me. So there were rooms that I never got to sit in at all because, hey, I'm at this point now I'm a senior analyst. And every time there was a special project, he brought my name up. Hey, you might want to think about Kiahna. Even in other segments when Motorola was big, he brought my name up and put me on a list of what they considered a high value employee to invest in. And so that was my first idea of a mentor, this guy who just saw something in me because of the confidence I exuded, because everyone's like, oh, Steve is mean. I'm like, Steve's not mean. You just got to talk to him, right? He's a finance guy, right? What finance guy is like, over the top and jumping cartwheels? Never. And so when we start speaking,
like usually associated, I agree.
I know, right? Like, I'm an anomaly, right? I'm a colorful accountant, but we're not pretty colorful. We're numbers. And so that was a powerful mentor experience for me. At the time, I didn't know what to call it. Mm-hmm. As I moved on in my career, now I get to name it. I get to name it for exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. And Steve Monaco doesn't know how impactful that time I had with him was for me and the trajectory of my career.
Well, it sounds like you need to write him a letter or send him a video message or something, because shout out to Steve Monaco. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds as if he had a huge impact on you.
Mhm.
And that was a little bit unexpected.
It was.
I have one of those people in my life as well, a former boss of mine, Bob Wilson, an
Oh,
advisor. And I have had many a conversation with Bob, and it was not a formal mentoring relationship. I was an employee like everyone else, but I developed a friendship with him, and still to this day, had lunch with him maybe a year ago. I think those kinds of relationships are really important to have an opportunity to access someone else's wisdom. And it's not necessarily just the expertise. It's all of the. It sounds like so much of it was really about how you show up and how to get into the room, and maybe we're fed that confidence to go out on your own and become an entrepreneur and smash that glass ceiling.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Look at how you put that all together.
There we go. Put the bow on it. So let me ask you the question, which is the final question I like to ask of everyone, and I have the feeling this will be something interesting from you. What life lesson, whether you learned it long ago or recently, is serving you best in your life right now?
Ooh.
You can take a moment if you want.
Let me think through that. I would say a few, but because I'm an accountant, I'm gonna land in kind of a finance realm. Being broke, not having money, making dumb decisions in life. One of the things, after you graduate from college, and especially I graduated Indiana University with my finance degree. And I moved into the finance space immediately with my career. But at the same time, my personal finances were jacked up at 21, 22. They were.
Mine were too. I remember, yes.
I didn't. The idea of credit card debt. I remember my mom calling me, and she said, Sears Roebuck is looking for you, and I'm like, well, why would Sears? And I forgot I had a credit card, but I'm like, who at 21? What do you buy from Sears? But I found something because I had a credit card, and I remember about a year into my career, because I had this debt, now it's like, that wasn't nothing. But at the time, it just seemed like a lot. And I didn't know how to maneuver. And I was ashamed. I was just like, gosh, how am I a finance person? And I have this debt. I'm barely paying bills, et cetera. And it really taught me how to make sure that integration that I talked about earlier, it really helped me understand the idea of living an authentic life where your life on the outside matches your life on the inside. And I had to make some corrections to say, if I'm going to help people with their money and their finances and produce, P&Ls and balance sheets and cash flow statements and advise people and organizations about this, I got to be willing to do the hard work on myself. And so today, I'm a person that whatever I do with my clients, I do for me. That I can't be the person that preaches to you and I haven't preached to myself.
Right.
And for me, I think that is the life lesson I've learned, especially as I think of being a finance professional. And I learned it early. I thank God I learned that early in life, right? Because
earlier than most, I'd say.
Yeah, I
21 is.
I did. And then I got married, and my husband knows, like, we start tracking expenses and we have monthly meetings, and he's like, gosh, you're just anal about this. And that's because at that moment I knew that there was a disconnect from what I did in my profession and how I live my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So the integration and the authentic self, I think that is a great lesson. I've got a few going on right now myself, but one that I actually made a vision board back earlier this year, and I've accomplished a couple of the things on there. And that feels really, really good for me. And as I look at it, it's literally sitting on the wall next to me. And the lesson I'm focusing on this year is that it was from a sermon, actually, when I at church. And the piece is in the margin.
Yes.
The margin. And there are different places where at different points in your life, you need a different kind of margin, right? It may be the finances. Someone just needs to breathe and not have to live paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely.
For me, it has definitely been just some of that downtime and girl time and making that work as an executive, a widow with 2 small kids, it becomes a little challenging. Mm-hmm. And so that has been my focus. And I'm getting there. I don't know if I got an offer on my house, accepted. So now I get to go through it just to get to the other side of that. So I think I might have to have a party sometime in November for the move, the election ending, all of it. So you might see me running around in the streets. If you do, that's why.
And you deserve it. I think we all do. Celebration, right? Agreed. In this conversation about high performing women, leaders, et cetera, one of the things we don't do a good job on is celebration. And
absolutely.
So this is the season of celebration, I think, for women.
All right. Let's end on that note. I like it. And I want to be part of it. So I'm going to do my celebrating as well as celebrating other women. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kiana. It was absolutely wonderful to have you. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Thank you.